Wisdom. It's an incredibly valuable asset. Some would say more precious than gold. It's attractive, appealing, admirable. Conversely, a lack of wisdom is the basis of immaturity, blind spots, and bad decisions. Wisdom. It can be gained over time, but it can't be rushed. But wisdom can be shared. That's precisely what we are here to do right now. Today, we are here to hack wisdom, to distill it, to understand it, and to process it. Why? To get better at life. Welcome to the main thing. This is your new 9-minute podcast. I'm your host, Skip Linneberg, and I've set out to interview the wisest people I know. We'll see what we can learn from each one when they're faced with an incredibly difficult, soul-piercing question. Welcome to the Main Thing Podcast. I'm your host, Skip Linneberg, coming to you today from Parkwood Studios with another special delivery of wisdom. A warm welcome to first-time listeners. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a single new episode. Speaking of subscribing, here's a special shout-out of gratitude to my subscribers. Thank you, Wisdom Warriors, each and every one, for showing up for every episode. If you're a leader and you're responsible for taking care of others, please consider sharing this show with someone you care about. Help them get better at life. Look for us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Simply search for us by our username, The Main Thing Pod. You may need an @ in front of that. Our special guest today is wise, smart, empathetic, and a great conversationalist. I am so excited for you to meet our special guest, Jill Scarbro. Jill is the 2022 National Small Business Person of the Year, a prestigious honor bestowed by the United States Small Business Administration, the federal SBA. What an honor. Having grown up in rural West Virginia with dyslexia, Jill's personal experience with needing specialized services to learn how to read shaped the trajectory of her life. Her life experiences led her to start Bright Futures as a school for one child in her grandmother's kitchen. Since its founding, Jill has grown that organization to one that's become a nationally recognized therapy center for children with autism. Today, Jill is a board-certified behavior analyst and CEO of Bright Futures Learning Services. Jill lives in Winfield, West Virginia, where she is partner to Tim and mom to Caroline and Garrett. Buckle up and get ready for a dynamic dose of wisdom. Over the next 9 minutes, you will discover why Jill Scarbro is one of the wisest people I know. Jill Scarbro, welcome to the Main Thing Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Skip. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be with you today. Jill, I wanted to start with this question. People have just heard that you are the 2022 US Small Business Administration Small Business Person of the Year. Did you ever imagine you would become that?
Absolutely not. Never in a million years. It actually was something would have been an insult to me if you had told me that 20-some years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Because you mentioned that would have been an insult to you at some point. So I wanted to ask you, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I knew from an early age, about, let's say, second grade, because of my personal experience. I grew up, I claim all of southern West Virginia as home. When I lived in Wyoming County, so for folks that don't know, that is the rural coalfields part of West Virginia.
The southernest.
The most of southern and not many people there. Thank God I had an incredible first grade teacher that realized I wasn't learning to read the way that, she thought that I should be, and was proactive about that. And I am blessed to have an incredible family that said, okay, what do we do about that? And in 1980, whatever, my family then got me specialized early intervention. And so that then set the trajectory for my life. And because I had that experience, I knew from about second grade, I wanted to be able to help kids that way, in the way that I had gotten help. So I didn't really know what that looked like.
Sure.
But I knew it was different, and I knew it was some kind of mix between psychology and education. And so I would say from an early age, like one day I'm going to have a school for kids with learning disabilities, because that's what I knew from my experience was learning disabilities. And so I didn't know how that would take shape. I just knew that there were more kids like me and families like mine that struggled to get their kids help. And I wanted to help families like that. And so that was what it was. Yeah.
Nice. So let's share with folks how we met. And if you'd like to start that story, I'll jump in and add a little color commentary.
Yeah. So it was our mutual friend, really good friend, Jeff Gerald, who's been on the show. That Jeff is also a parent of he has a son. His son Noah has autism. And he was first introduced to me as our financial advisor, insurance, guru, and just a guy in the community who cared a lot about the same things that I cared about.
We are delighted to have Gerald Black returning as a sponsor of the Main Thing podcast. We appreciate their generous support in underwriting this episode. Our friends at Gerald Black encourage you to keep growing and seeking wisdom. Gerald Black, pleased to serve small business clients from offices in Dublin and Mount Vernon, Ohio, and its headquarters in Teays Valley, West Virginia. To learn more, visit online at geraldblack.com. Jill Scarbro, what's the main thing you've learned in your lifetime so far?
Skip, the main thing I have learned so far is that we find what we seek and we get what we groom.
Oh, wow. We find what we seek and we get what we groom. Did I get that right?
You got it right. I had to keep it on a Post-it too to make sure I said it correctly.
I love that. That sounds enticing, intriguing, loaded with meaning. Why don't you unpack that for us and take us inside the meaning there?
So one of the first things that we do when we aim to help a child is guide the parents or the teachers or the therapists. The first thing is catch them being good. Catch them being good. Okay. That's behavior analysis, basic reinforcement principles 101.
Sure.
So it is, hey teacher, if you want that decrease in the thing that is problematic, the first thing you do is look for what do you want. Intentionally look for what do you want. Okay, I want the child to look at me more. Okay, well, let's arrange the environment to make it more likely that will happen. And then when it happens, specifically reinforce it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so that's basic behavior analysis.
So that's the grooming.
That's then the grooming, like specifically reinforce it. Right?
Get what you groom.
You get what you groom.
What's something that you've focused on? You said, this is a little out of whack, or this is not going where it wants to go. And so you started grooming something in your own life or your family. Did you have an application of that was a personal example from recent times? Yeah,
I think the main thing that's been kind of a paradox, right, is that I am blessed to have what I truly feel is such a calling, right, of like feel like I was designed to serve this very specific, children. And so then it becomes an obsession and a workaholic. And so I think people, especially that their work is also a mission and a passion to serve.
Yeah.
It's even more likely that we're just going to throw ourselves into it and sacrifice our own families.
Okay.
And our own time with our children and our own personal, core family. And so, my partner, Tim, is great because we're really opposite in that way. That he's a guy that made the decision of what made him happy is he owns a barber shop. He's a barber. He loves to hunt, and he wanted to be a really, great dad to his son Garrett, my stepson Garrett. And so made that decision of the way that I can do this the best is to, own my barber shop. It provides what I need. And then I can go hunt with my son and spend a lot of time with him. Whereas my scope is I care about the world. Yeah. And I really care about them. The specific way is, children and families with, different learning needs. And then I've had to really go, hold on, step back, and then really focus on my family and my child. And so have had to go, end of the day, when I'm on my deathbed, what matters the most? What matters the most is what my daughter says about me and what Tim says about me and what Garrett and my friends and family. And if my full identity is wrapped up into living this mission and helping families, but I wasn't there for them, that's a problem.
Yeah. You're grooming that family focus.
Yeah.
What's it like for someone who's on the spectrum? What's it like inside their head? What have you learned to understand about how they perceive the world and what that feels like to them?
I think that's a really great question, Skip. And first, I will say I'm not on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so only a person who is on the autism spectrum can answer that from their perspective and their experience of being on the autism spectrum, which is very vast and broad.
Okay.
And so there's a saying kind of in the community, in the field, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Okay.
And so they can speak to their experience.
Okay.
So I can speak from my experience as a person who, is neurodivergent. Again, I've gotten older and learned more about that's why I think the way that I am, the way that we label that now is dyslexic and ADD.
Okay.
So I can speak from that personal experience and as someone who has aimed to serve children and families with autism, what I have learned from them.
Sure.
So with that being said, all of that
Yes.
preface of,
Yes, we have our prefaces
here's
now.
the preface. And so the best answer is talk to a person with autism to learn their experience. But what that's, kind of what's the big, what's the main thing for that, I would say, that I've learned so far is that almost people, with on the autism spectrum, some, oftentimes think almost the opposite, in the opposite direction as neurotypical people. Meaning neurotypical people, whatever that is, tend to think big picture down to detail.
Okay.
Whereas people on the autism spectrum, as a generality, tend to start with the detail almost to the exclusion of the big picture. And so when we go, so much of life struggles is about perspective taking. And we go, okay, our neurotypical perspective is we notice lots of details at the same time. We take in information and then boil it down, versus the person with autism may see one tiny thing and that's the only thing they can see.
This has been a joy. It's been enriching and it's been fun. I've learned a ton. How can I thank you enough?
Thank you, Skip, genuinely for the opportunity, because I think we all go, I don't know, what do I have to offer? And when Jeff said, hey, there's this podcast you should do that, the intention is to pass along wisdom. I'm like, really? What do I have to offer? And so genuinely to be included in the group of the folks I've heard on your podcast, I mean, it's truly a privilege and an honor. So thank you for letting me pass along the little bit of here's what I've learned from my perspective.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. Talk again soon. Wow. 9 minutes is up. That goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom.